request to 100-foot maximum. That's correct.
And the first witness for UGI Energy Services will be Casey Monahan. Casey.
My name is Casey Monahan, Plot 3 Group Incorporated, located at 37 North Washington Street, Wilkes-Barre. And I guess I'll start out by giving you guys a general location where this is going.
Can you speak up, please?
Sure.
Casey has already indicated that he's an engineer with Quad 3 Group. I would just like him to state their awards, education, his educational background, and his professional background.
My educational background is a bachelor's degree in civil engineering and a master's degree in environmental engineering. I've been in land development for 9 years now, with several land development projects in Canada.
And you are a registered professional engineer.
I'm a registered professional engineer in the state of Pennsylvania.
You have offered Mr. Monahan as a professional expert in around 9 years ago. You have been involved, as you know, with the development of the compressor stations that are subject to this hearing.
That is correct.
What do you have there to share with us?
The first is just a general location map, nothing specific, to kind of give more of a general idea where the site is. This is just a typical.
What we're going to do is we're just going to take a look at this first, and then it'll be passed around so everybody can take a look at it as quickly as you can, so that everybody gets an opportunity.
What I have here is the site is located in West Wyoming Borough, approximately a half mile from Fire Cut Road, okay, which is over here. This is Fire Cut Road. Okay? We are about a half mile from Farmington Road. We are over a mile from Shoemaker, and we're about 3/4 of a mile from Gate Street.
Does the map that you have identify the location of the proposed compressor station?
It does. The buildings here, as shown on the legend, the proposed compressor building is right here in associated facilities.
Show the members of the board where on that map are the closest residences to the proposed station.
The two closest residents are off Northridge Lane, which are about a half mile to the south. Here. Okay. The next closest house, which is just over a half mile, is on Farmer.
Can I just make a quick comment, Chuck? Everybody here, when he's pointing to that and you're looking at the board, there is a diagram in the right corner which shows the site, and then there are lines showing with a circle where the residence would be. So when you're looking at it, it'll indicate, you'll be able to understand what he was talking about when he just said where are the closest residences on this map as you look at it. Okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
The closest one you say is approximately a half mile.
Approximately a half mile to the closest residence.
And this location, it's fair to say it's a remote location.
Yes.
Please, no comments. You'll have your opportunity to testify.
And we have this identified as the applicant's exhibit A.
Are you done with that right now? Yeah. You want to put this on market first? Market, go ahead.
this here is a plan that we'll be submitting to the Luzerne County Planning Commission for land development purposes. Okay. This will show the intended grading plan. This shows the locations of the buildings, and whatnot, setbacks and things like that. That will be shown to the land development purposes.
To explain to the board, the piece of real estate is being acquired for the present station of this property.
Piece of property is 14 acres.
And we are, UGI, facilities plans on meeting what part of that property for the present station.
They will not be using all 14 acres. Just to make that clear, we will not be third-party 14 acres of woodland. As you can see on this drawing, there's a line that says LOD, okay? That is our limited disturbance, which we've submitted to DEP, which basically will be the limit that they will be allowed to do work, okay? This is a 10-acre piece out of the 14 acres. So we will not be clear-cutting all 14 acres. Now, the compressor station itself is only on a pad that's 3.5 acres, not 10 acres. The reason we need the full 10 acres, as you can see, we're factoring in stormwater management, grading. The grading and stormwater basins will take up a large portion of that acreage. But the actual pad itself is only 3.5 acres.
Have this identified as packages, exhibit B.
Half the time.
Okay, so you're planning, this project. Is there a necessity or have you advised that there needs to be a communications tower associated with this?
Yes.
Describe or dimensions of that tower and its location on the site. Near the one of the factors.
It's kind of located on this 3.5 acre pad. The tower height is 100 feet that they're asking for, a maximum of 100 feet. And this has been designed by the Transco. The base is a 14 by 14 base, and as you go up in height, it necks down. As a comparison, the PPL towers that go across that mountain now, we've surveyed and verified that those bases are 35 by 35. So we are a much smaller size than the existing PPL towers.
And the reason that the tower needs to be 100 feet high, the reasons are.
The reason for the size and the height is due to the existing tree canopy and due to varying topography in the area. We need that height.
So just to clarify, the base of the proposed tower is what's the
14 by 14.
And it narrows.
And it narrows as you get higher.
Location, maybe one that
Yeah.
Tower.
Have you prepared for us, can you share with us information about the line of sight as this 100-foot tower pertains to the surrounding area?
Yes. What I have here are line of sight drawings to kind of illustrate the remoteness of this facility. What you see is this here, the top one is a view from Main Street, and the bottom one is a view from Shoemaker. And based upon the existing topography and tree canopy, there's physically no way possible to be able to see our tower or compressor station from either A Street or Shoemaker. based upon the line of sight. As a reference, I've given you the existing PPL tower 2 scale and our tower 2 scale. And also, the side represents, the top one is the view from Carverton. This topography shows you will not be able to see it. And the view from Norwick Lane, Carverton Road area. Okay?
We would like to have these identified as hazardous C1 and C2.
That there is existing PPL transmission lines there. There's an existing Transco line there. There's an existing water tower there. That, as a utility building, this is in conjunction with the surrounding uses.
And there won't be any negative impact on the nature and condition of all the adjacent uses and structures. Are you aware, Casey, of the cell tower height location allowed by the Lieutenant County zoning ordinance?
Yes,
And what is that?
that is 150 feet.
And do you know in which districts cell towers would be allowed?
I believe it's any district except for mining.
Except for mine, and that would include this district as well.
Yes.
So the location of both this compressor station compared to the surrounding neighborhoods as well as the cell tower would not be, in your opinion, detrimental to any public health or other uses?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Can you speak up, please?
Keith, is your capacity a senior air quality scientist with CHCM?
Yes, I'm senior air quality scientist. I'm a senior air quality scientist at CHUM Hill. I have a Bachelor of Science degree in Earth and Atmospheric Science from Rutgers University in 1990. I've been in the air quality science field for 22 years.
While in that field, have you had occasion to seek air quality permitting for gas compressor systems?
Yes, I've submitted and obtained air permits for several natural gas compressor stations in a variety of states.
I offer Mr. Rochesky as an expert in air quality. Now, Keith, you're involved in the permitting process for the UGI Energy Services compressor station, is that correct?
That is correct.
And what did you do in that capacity?
I prepared the permit application for the Pennsylvania DEP, the air permit application for this compressor station. It's required before construction or operation of the compressor station may commence. That application was submitted in March of 2012. It was deemed administratively complete 2 weeks after by the Pennsylvania DEP, 2 weeks after submittal. Subsequent to that submittal, we received some technical comments from the DEP, which is very commonplace for any permit application. We responded to those DEP comments and submitted a revised application on August 1st. The revised application addressed all of these technical comments at the time.
Would you explain to the board what role the DEP plays here, and in particular, what role it plays in connection with the EPA emission standards?
DEP is the regulatory authority in this case. They are charged with enforcing and maintaining any EPA standard that exists for the Texas facility. The DEP has the full authority to review and issue their quality permit for this facility. And they are the final authority on this particular facility.
Is it fair for me to say that the Department of Environmental Protection, Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection, in reviewing the application, has its air quality experts analyze the information provided? Is that the case with air quality experts?
That is true. The air quality engineer or a team of engineers reviews the application. They review it for compliance with all applicable regulations, be it state or federal regulations. They review They reviewed all the design aspects of the facility, the emissions, and will render a decision that on whether to grant it or not grant a permit based on the content of the application.
And in addition to the air quality experts at DEP that review all the information that you submit, they also open the application for comment to the public.
Yes, the application itself is available for the public to review at any point now that it's been submitted. When DEP does issue a draft permit, they will go out for public comment, and the public will have the 30-day period to offer any comments they have on the air permit. DEP will be charged with responding to those comments and adjusting the air permit as they feel needed. Also, the public can request a public hearing to the DEP, and the DEP, with the DEP discretion that they could require a public hearing before they issue the permit plan.
It's my understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that the engines that are proposed for this compressor station are manufactured by Caterpillar, is that correct?
That's correct. They're Caterpillar 3616L engines.
And what, in terms of the industry, Caterpillar considered state-of-the-art?
Caterpillar would be considered state-of-the-art manufacturer for this type of compressor engine.
Tell us, if you will, you mentioned earlier the EPA, the federal government has established limits that we cannot exceed. And can you tell us if the emissions that are proposed from this facility and through use of the Caterpillar engines, if they are below or well below those limits?
That is true. The EPA established emission limits for 3 particular pollutants for this type of engine for use in this kind of application. They established an emission limit for NOx, nitrous oxide. The proposed emissions from this plant are 50% of the EPA limit. They also have established the limits for carbon monoxide, for CO. The emission limit, the proposed emissions from the facility are only 9.5% of the EPA limit. They also have a emission limit for volatile organic compound, or VOC emissions. And our proposed emissions are 18.5% of the EPA limit.
May I interject a question here? The Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection sent back a UGI plan. It had some technical deficiencies about emissions and air quality. Can you explain that?
Yes, we had submitted an analysis of best available control technology for several pollutants. They reviewed it, and based on some other applications they received, they had suggested that our emissions for VOCs, we could look at other catalyst designs to possibly get lower emissions. So I went back and obtained other catalyst quotes, and subsequently reduced our VOC emissions from 50% of the federal limit now down to 18.5% of the federal limit.
Is it fair to tell us what these emissions were, these pollutants? What were these pollutants?
Volatile organic compounds. That was the comment that the DEP was developed. The other pollutants, they found limits that we had proposed to be acceptable and consistent with their best available technology.
So as a consequence of the
Could you speak up? We can't hear you.
No microphone?
Hold on, everybody. I'll ask you to restate what you just testified to, okay?
Wow.
No, we have to talk to the board. He'll talk as loud as he can, and what I would tell you is that I'm sorry we do not have speakers in this building, but we do not have speakers. So he'll talk as loud as he can, and again, if you have questions, after everybody's testifying, you'll have an opportunity to ask questions.
Yeah, question on what?
Okay? He will testify again. I'll ask him to speak louder, and he'll testify again. This is what we have here tonight. This is the room we have. This is how we have to operate.
Convenient.
Joe, would you ask the last question and ask him if he would repeat it again?
I believe, and correct me if I misstated, I believe that the question was, DEP had some technical comments regarding UGI Energy Services application. And as a consequence of those comments, there were modifications made. And could you explain to the board what those modifications were, how they came about, and what they resulted in.
Yes.
Now, you've already spoken. If you want to turn around again and speak again, you can do that.
Thank you.
The Pennsylvania DEP had a technical comment on the VOC emissions that we had represented as best available technology in the application. We had reviewed all other existing permits that were issued at the time when we submitted the application, and that was what our original emission rate was based on. Subsequent to that, DEP has several other permits under review, and they informed UGI that they believe that our VOC emission rate could be reduced by going with a different catalyst vendor. UGI researched it and obtained a new catalyst vendor, and we were able to lower our VOC emissions from the 50% of the federal emission limit down to 18.5% of the federal emission limit as a result. The other emissions for non-PCO were deemed acceptable as DAT from the DEP.
If it's something you can't hear, we can.
No, it wasn't the first time, it was a deficiency in.
Sorry, you'll have an opportunity to question later, okay?
With respect to the permit award process now, has UGI Energy Services complied with all environmental and regulatory requirements?
Yes, the current permit application complies with all state and federal requirements, and we meet or are well below any existing emission standards that exist.
Based upon the what you know about the emission standards, and we are well below those established by the federal government, do you feel that this facility in any way did provide any detriment to the harm of the health, safety, and welfare of the surrounding residents?
Based on my professional opinion, I would know that.
I don't have any further questions for this witness. Now calls Michael A. Smith. Sorry, it's Michael East.
No, A is right.
Oh, A is right. I'm sorry.
So they don't see on the screen again.
Mr. Smith, for the board, would you be so kind as to state your name, your address, and your place of employment?
Michael A. Smith. Michael A. Smith. I live at 14B Fairway Drive in Reading, Pennsylvania. I work for UGI Energy Services at 1 Wyoming Boulevard and 1 Meridian Boulevard in Wyoming, Pennsylvania.
And would you be kind enough to give the board your educational background?
And I am a graduate of Louisiana Tech University, have a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering. I've been in the energy industry for about 29 years, and I've been in the gas transmission industry for 26 years.
And during the course of those years that you just mentioned, you worked on facilities such as this?
My entire history in the gas transmission has been design and construction of gas transmission facilities, pipeline and compressor station.
I would offer Mr. Smith as an expert witness. Mr. Smith, you're familiar with the functioning of the compressor station proposed for this site?
Correct, I am.
Can you, in layman's terms, describe to the board how the compressor station operates?
Well, essentially, a compressor station like this is also sometimes called a booster station. The pressure comes in at one level, and you want to boost the pressure up to either get into another pipeline or to go further down the line, because as the gas travels through the pipeline, it loses pressure due to friction. And all this facility does is take the pressure in, boost it, and send it on down the line. The facilities consist of, you've got the pipeline coming in, and then you have filtration to knock out any impurities that might be in the gas. This is considered pipeline quality gas, so the impurity should be very minimal. So if it goes through scrubbers, it then goes into the compressor. The cat engine that we discussed earlier drives an aerial compressor. It's a reciprocating compressor driven by the reciprocating engine. and it boosts the pressure. When it leaves the compressor at the higher pressure, it goes through another filter, this time it's a coalescing type filter, and then it goes back into the pipeline and wherever it needs to go.
And in terms of the operation of the operation of the compressor station, can you address to the board any issues that there may be or that don't exist with respect to noise?
While we didn't have specific noise criteria to use on this station, what we decided to go with, while this is not a FERC facility, we decided to use FERC regulations.
What that is.
FERC is the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. And FERC requires that you meet a level of 55 dBA LDN, and I'll explain that in a minute, at the closest noise sensitive area, or NSA. Now, what we decided to do here to be very, very conservative is we are meeting that 55 dBA LDN at 350 feet. 350 feet from this station, there's nothing but more woods. Okay, the closest noise sensitive area, which will be people's housing, the closest house is still another 2,000 feet away from that. But with the 55 dBA LDN is a day-night averaging, because, you know, when you go outside your house at night, 2 in the morning, you can hear things further away than you could during the day because of background noise, and that is factored into this. So the actual level at the 350 feet would be 48 dBA. You leave the LDN part of it off. And so we are designing the station to be 48 dBA at 350 feet. The closest house is another 2,000, almost 2,000 feet away at that point. And 48 dBA, if I was speaking at 48 dBA, none of these people would hear, because this is more like 48 dBA.
So that has to do with the way the building is designed in terms of soundproofing, depth of the walls, the width of the walls, is that correct? And other things?
Your noise sources, your main noise sources at a compressor station are the casing noise, the noise off of the engine and the compressor, just like off of your car. And then the intake and exhaust. And just like you have silencers on that on your vehicle, we have intake silencers because the turbocharger, we have exhaust silencers, and then the building wall, it's not designed completely yet, but it'll probably be close to a foot thick. The other noise source potentially are fans on cooling devices, whether it's the gas cooling or the water cooling on the engine. We slow those down and put other improvements on it so that they don't make loud noises also. So your noise sources are the fans, the intake, the exhaust, and the casing, and those are handled with silencers.
So you're building to a decibel level of 55 dBA at 350 feet from the facility.
Yeah.
Well, yes. Have you, and then 48, you
Right.
said, when you take that one factor out. Have you modeled what the dBA level would be at the closest property line?
We are doing a noise study in the area. It is scheduled for the week of the 13th, which I believe is next week. And it should be, at least at this point, assuming, if you assume there was nothing between you and the closest, it would be 38 or less, which is very quiet.
38, assuming.
38, we get clear. Right.
When you say nothing between you, what do you mean?
No trees, the elevation, you know, I mean, you've got hills between the station and the closest NSA or noise sensitive area that will be blocking the noise, but we don't factor that in at all when we look at that.
Are these engines on diesel or gas?
These are natural gas engines.
That's what it is.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Smith, can you, well, just to reiterate, noise is really not going to be a factor here.
That is correct.
Can you now describe for the board what, in your experience, and what the intended design of this compressor station is? What automatic controls are in place in the event of an emergency? Can you describe how that would all work?
Well, obviously, the facility, again, even though it is not a federally regulated facility, we are building to the more stringent transmission standards. And the safety devices we've got would be gas detectors and fire eyes. Now, gas detectors Without getting too deep into the weeds here, you know, if you have nothing but natural gas and no air, it won't light. If you have a whole lot of air, just a little bit of natural gas, it won't light. You've got to have your three things to make it light: is fuel, oxygen, and a source of ignition. And what the gas detectors do is, at that minimum level of gas and air, which is called the LEL, lower explosive limit, that number of the mixture of natural gas and air is the first point where you'll be able to ignite the mixture. Well, our gas detectors at 20% of that level, so it's a long way from getting to that level. At 20%, they will alarm, and that alarm will show up in our gas. It'll show up on site, and it'll also show up in our gas control facility, and it will tell gas control something needs to be done. They need to start checking things. If somebody is not at the site, they'll dispatch somebody to the site. If it keeps rising and gets to 40% of LEL, so it's still not even halfway up to that lower explosive limit, it will automatically shut the station down. Now that is the gas.
Can you explain the worst scenario?
So,
The worst scenario. Anything ever happen with these compressors problems?
I mean, if something happened and you had a release of gas at the facility, whether it was the gas detectors or the other devices I was talking about, the fire eyes, which are flame detectors. On a flame detector, the minute it sees anything it thinks is a flame, it's going to shut the whole facility down. Now, the gas detectors would close off the valves to the gas supply, but they don't vent at that point because we don't know what the issue is. We just know that our instrumentation told us there was gas. Okay, but we don't vent it at that point. But gas control can if they see an issue, or if the person on site sees an issue. The fire eyes, if they see a fire, then they are going to do the same thing. They're going to block and they're going to vent all of the gas from the station, getting rid of you're getting rid of the fuel source for any fire. Also on the gas detectors, as long as there's no fire, then the fans will come on to help clear the building and move the gas out of the building. On fire eyes, you don't want to do that if you see a flame because you're sucking air in and that's more fuel for the flame. So the systems are integrated very well to make this a very safe installation.
Can you talk to us about the emissions footprint? We talked a little bit today about emissions, but today we get our energy from a number of sources. Can you describe for the board what will happen as a consequence of the use of natural gas as more of an energy source than other sources?
Okay, I mean, natural gas is a fossil fuel. It is the cleanest burning of the fossil fuel. Your other options you've got gasoline, you've got oil, you've also got coal that you can use. Of all of those, the most clean burning is natural gas. And while, yes, this facility is going to have emissions, you can't have zero emissions. Me sitting here talking to you breathing, I've got emissions, okay? You can't get rid of them. And this facility does have emissions. But in Pennsylvania, we've got this large amount of gas, and we have the ability to put these facilities in and start converting these coal-fired facilities and these oil-fired facilities. And maybe we get even the CNG, compressed natural gas for vehicles. The emissions are going to be a lot less because this is a much cleaner burning fuel. Is it a burning fuel, a fossil fuel that gives off emissions? Yes, but it's a much better alternative than some of the other options. Now, a lot of people talk about electricity. Well, and if you put in electric power is created how? You know, somebody burning gas somewhere. Well, if I send gas to your house and you light your stove, and let's say there's 500 BTU per hour right there, then you got 500 BTU of gas. But if you got an electric stove, to get that same 500 BTU of gas, they had to burn 1,000 BTU of gas at the electric generation station to get it here. So we're still we are reducing emissions even from electricity, because people think, well, electricity doesn't have emissions. Well, it's not a true statement. It's just putting the emissions somewhere else.
Yes, and President Klein?
Sure. My name is Michael Maurer. I am currently Director of Operations for UGI Energy Services. Current residence is in Philadelphia. My office is in Wyomissing, Pennsylvania, 1 Meridian Boulevard.
Mr. Mayor, please keep up your voice when you're asking questions.
So, Mr. Mayor, can you tell us a little bit about your educational and work background?
Sure. I have a mechanical engineering, bachelor's in mechanical engineering degree. I've been working in the energy business for over 25 years. The bulk of my experience has been on operations and construction in this facility.
Okay, I would offer Mr. Merritt as an expert witness. You heard Mr. Smith describe some of the controls that are in place in connection with the compressor station to avert any emergency situations. Can you describe at all, describe for us how the off-site controls come into play here?
Sure. This facility and the associated pipeline, remember this is part of a system, a delivery system, is currently subject to regulation by the Pennsylvania PUC under recently enacted oil and gas safety standards. We are operating the facility as a transmission class facility. There are well-established guidelines, federal guidelines, from an agency called PHMSA, who regulates the interstate pipeline network. So we will be subject to the various sections and compliance related to those standards. And they include things like protection on the pipeline, preserve the pipeline, scheduled leak checks, surveys to make sure that somebody doesn't build a school nearby the pipeline. There's an outreach program, communication program. There's a Pennsylvania One Call program. The contractors will be digging near this facility. So these are all the things that will be incorporated off the compressor site itself.
And you heard Mr. Smith testify that there is an off-site control location which monitors this facility.
Yeah, I could speak to that. As I said, I'm currently director of operations. I have a number of energy facilities that I'm responsible for. UGI maintains a central control room staff 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, multiple operators per shift. From that station, they monitor an entire network of facilities. So any kind of a gas, a hazard alarm comes in, if they see a major operational issue anywhere on their system, that signal comes back to that particular location. If it's after hours, there's an established protocol, there's an emergency list, who gets called out, who has priority, and in the case of a major event, there'll be multiple responders to any kind of issue. That system's been in place for many years now.
So for all intents and purposes, the activity there is monitored 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
That's correct.
Now, you mentioned after hours. Will this facility be manned?
Yes. During normal daylight working hours, we will have typically at least 2 employees on site monitoring the facility, changing the oil, changing the filters, just doing what I would consider the more routine day-to-day operational activities.
Of course, if any of the alarms would go off at that time, they'd be able to address it.
They would address it immediately. They'd be on site to address it. And they would also be on the list of our after-hours response too.
How about traffic? You mentioned there'll be a couple of full-time employees there. Is there going to be a lot of traffic into the facility?
The bulk of the traffic will obviously be during the construction phase. It's round numbers estimated to be about a 6-month construction project for the facility. So there, obviously, you'll have the construction vehicles. We'll be moving compressors in place. So there'll be a lot of activity. Once construction's over, typically on a normal day, we would have 2, as I said, usually 2 full-time employees, so pickup truck or 2 on site, and then occasional supplemented with other contractor work. There's a maintenance activity, requires a couple of maintenance contractors, they'll bring their vehicle on the site to do the maintenance. The bulk of the work, the vehicle traffic, will be during the daylight hours.
Tell the board about the ability for emergency vehicles to access the compressors.
Sure. And that's obviously always a concern of these kinds of facilities. Bear in mind that we'll be required to pay for and probably provide certain upgrades to a number of the roads leading to the site just to do the initial construction. Generally, the large vehicles that are moving, as I said, the compressors and the bulk equipment during the construction phase are larger than any emergency vehicle that's required afterwards. So,
Hold on just a minute.
as we get more, get into the, for instance, the planning process, the planning development process, we will start to develop more detailed emergency response plans. Now, that will occur once there's enough design done to the facility so that we can put together a rational plan. Where's the fence located? Where are the van gates located? Where is the gas and fire detection? So when that's done, we'll be required, we've done a number of other similar types of projects in Missouri County over the past 4 to 5 years, including a power plant, some LPG propane facilities. And generally during that phase, we were doing an outreach to the county emergency planning agency. We determined who the local first responders and any backup fire departments are. So we would actively begin to engage those entities in a more deep, as the plan took more design.
So there will be a plan in place with the local fire responders?
Oh, absolutely, yes. So there'll be a plan in place. We will get comments from the local fire responders. And then, post-construction, there'll be drills with the fire responders. And they'll continue. The plan is a living document. If there's a deficiency during the drill, as typically during other projects, when we get out there, if it requires some special equipment, we'll buy that, keep that at the site. So it's an interactive process.
How about with the Luzerne County Emergency Management Agency?
Yeah, as I said, they will be. We will involve them as we go into the planning process there. As I said, to initiate that, there's just got to be enough detail on the design to put together a rational plan. As I mentioned, you want enough information on how exactly we're getting in, how big the gates are, where it's the gas and fire detection located, those kinds of things.
Can you speak to the board a little bit about how we protect the compressor station, or the plan to protect the compressor station from vandalism and trespassing?
Sure.
Things of that nature?
Sure, there'll be obviously a security fence around the site. It'll be barbed wire, but we also install security cameras at different locations around the facility. And those are not only, we can monitor them obviously on site, but they can also be remotely monitored. It's basically an internet type connection where we can keep it. So if there's any kind of issue, if in our control room something shows up, we can issue the appropriate response, whether it's a 911 call or dispatch one of our people to the site.
You heard Casey testify about the communications tower on site.
Sure.
What is the purpose of that tower? We know that it has to be a certain height in order to overcome the topographical challenges, but what is the purpose of that tower?
That tower is so we can communicate in real time with Transco, with the pipeline. We are required to meet certain conditions before we can put gas into the interstate system. So there's certain gas quality. We have to maintain gas quality management and records, operating pressure, safety devices, and that information is fed continuously to Transco, to the particular pipeline in this case.
Now, Mr. Smith described the compressor station as being an integral part of the entire transportation system, if you will. Can you tell us how critical this compressor station is to, let's say, public utilities that in fact utilize the gas that we're transmitting through this area?
Sure. There's, as I said, the station is part of the system. It's part of a major network of pipes and stations and supply points. In this particular case, we're moving gas 2 places. There'll be gas shipped directly to the local utility. We have a UGI services is contracted with the utility to provide that service. Okay? And also, we deliver it into the transmission lines. So we take service along these transmission lines at many points. For instance, the gas that may be serving this area right now is coming off of a transmission line. There's a gate station and then a smaller pipeline down into the distribution system, eventually into the houses and businesses, the hospitals, that sort of thing. So this is a critical part of that infrastructure. These facilities have been in operation for many, many years. There are a number of them in this area that have been operating for many years.
And the compressor station will support utility operations.
Yeah, ultimately, the bulk of the gas on the transmission network is provided to distribution companies, utility distribution.
So it's fair to say that this compressor station is part of the utility system and a utility facility.
Yes, I agree with that.
With respect to UGI Energy Services, can you tell me anything about whether or not it falls within any regulations of the Public Utility Commission and what other marketing or other licenses it might have?
Sure. We have a number of different requirements. This is Energy Services, not UGI Utility. We are a licensed marketer of gas and electricity with Pennsylvania PUC. We are also, from a safety standpoint, as I said, we are regulated by the Pennsylvania PUC. As a matter of fact, just yesterday I was with the PUC inspector at our other compressor station that we operate in Susquehanna County. So we're regulated fairly closely from a safety standpoint and a marketing standpoint by the Pennsylvania Public Utility Commission.
I want to get back a little bit to the internal safety measures.
Sure.
To address that. I believe Mr. Smith talked about a lot of the things that happen, the fire eyes, the fans, and things of that nature. Can you tell us what happens if there is unusual vibration?
Yes, the equipment, all of the equipment, the major equipment is equipped with vibration monitors that are continuously monitoring the operation of that equipment. So if there is an anomaly, there's, as in most of these cases, there's an alarm level where we first get a notice that there's potentially a problem. And if the problem persists and gets to a critical point, then that equipment is automatically shut down.
Does that result in, you described for us, isolation, if you will, of the compressor station?
If there's an issue, as Mr. Smith started getting into with the gas and fire, we view the hazards, potential hazards differently. So for gas, we might lock up the station, bypass the compressors, and let the gas flow through. If it continues to get worse, then we can emergency shut down the station. But there's vent fans that would come on in a gas situation where we're exceeding, as Mr. Smith described, the LEM, the lower explosive limit. In the case of a fire, we would again shut the station down, but immediately vent all the gas from the facility, remove the fuel. And that's a standard, that's a pretty typical protection practice we use at all of our facilities, be them propane, liquid natural gas, or power.
Based upon all that you've heard this evening and what you obviously know, which is quite a bit, about the operations and how they work, what is your opinion about the threat to the public health, safety, and welfare of the state?
I believe it's minimal.
Thank you. I have no further questions, Mr. Mayor.
May I ask, why 3 compressors?
The compressors, depending on the amount of gas, the amount of gas we're attempting to move and transmit, and the pressures we have to, the compressors are block size. So most of our facilities typically have 3 or 4 compressors. That's pretty typical.
Is there one like that in the state of Pennsylvania?
There's a number in the state. We operate one with 4 compressors right now.
No problems with that?
We've had no issue with that. Not at this time. The site is pretty constrained. I believe physically the most it could accommodate is probably 1 additional unit. If that were the case, we're not asking for approval for a 4th unit. If that were the case, we'd have to obviously come through the process all over.
That's why I was asking, why 14 acres?
The site is fairly remote. It's on the side of a hill. We like to have a lot of buffer around our facilities. We do the same thing. We try to do the same thing with our other facilities. As an example, our liquid natural gas plant, we have 70-some acres. Try to maintain a buffer around the facility for security and privacy.
There's such a decrease in pressure that you have to have these 3 compressors here?
Yes, as the gas comes down the line, most of this gas will be coming from up north, from Mashopin area. Okay, as Mr. Smith explained, it gets put in at one pressure as gas, or any fluid, quite frankly, flows through the line, it loses pressure due to friction. So at key points, we would boost it. The reason it's here is because the transco line is right here. So it's a logical point for interconnection.
I was at the area and I talked to some of the people that live in the area, not that close by. How will the gas be deodorized? Is it going to be deodorized on site?
Now, the odorant will be done at the gate station up at the shopping. There's an existing odorizer up there, so there's no additional odorization at this particular facility. But it will be odorized in the pipeline, but there won't be odorant or captain at this particular facility.
I realize the emissions are state mandated. Now we're talking about benzene, toluene, formaldehyde, nitrous oxide, carbon monoxide. Are there any other emissions?
They're the primary pollutants that the Pennsylvania DEP is looking at. There's particulate emissions that they don't regulate for a gas-fired facility this size.
There's no other pollutants other than what I mentioned.
They are the pollutants that we are required to regulate for this. There's carbon dioxide, there's water vapor, there's
Please, everybody, you'll have an
particulate.
opportunity to.
So there are other emissions from this from combustion of natural gas. These are the ones that DEP and EPA are most concerned with.
I was at the site and it's in a valley. There's a stream going by and you're going to deforest how many acres?
The full site is 14 acres. The limit of disturbance is 10 acres, and the final site, if you will, the final pad will be about 3.5 acres.
Will it affect the wildlife?
I don't know, of course. UGI has an agreement to purchase with the land.
It hasn't been purchased as of yet.
Yeah, we have a signed agreement with the land.
Would you be using water from the stream?
No, the cooling,
Question was, would they be using water from the stream, and he said no.
no.
How about any base water testing?
He'll have an opportunity to ask questions later.
What, 10 o'clock?
The gas is coming in.
Everybody thinks the people's turn?
Where we are.
Oh, excuse me.
Where do you plan on making the next station, compressor station?
We have one other station that's under development that will go into construction later this year in Tioga County. What we're doing is we're using, rather than in the past, we typically would move gas from the Gulf up through the pipeline, the transmission network. We're now using a lot of the Pennsylvania-produced gas and providing it locally. So hence the infrastructure upgrade in Pennsylvania.
Mainly now, these three compressors are to shoot it out further towards the East Coast.
No, they supply both the local network and the regional network. As I said, we're going to have, as an example, with this particular facility, we will have a direct connection with the local utility in Wilkes-Barre.
So you hook right onto Transco.
Transco and a direct connect to the existing distribution system, the existing utility distribution system.
I guess the term associated facilities. What is the term associated facilities?
That would be, as Mr. Smith started to get into, that would be the cooling fans. That would be the filtration system we talked about. So when you bring the gas down, you got to make sure it's a good quality before you burn it, put it in the system, so we filter the gas. So there'll be a number of ancillary facilities that are associated with the compressor station. But the primary emissions will come from the compressor, the engines themselves.
Out of curiosity, is the pressure that low that you have to build these three compressors?
To move the quantities and quality of gas that we want to, yes, yes, it's a requirement. Yes.
The type of waste is generated from the facility, mixed with water.
Sure,
they
sure.
Transport the waste.
Yeah, we will have a collection system to any, for instance, we refer to them as blowdowns, but as we do maintenance, we got to keep packings clean to prevent, premature wear and tear. We've got to occasionally replace the oil. So we'll have a central collection system we call, lack of a better term, a slop tank, and then we'll have a hauling company come in that haul it off periodically so we build up any waste.
Is that waste from the filtration system?
Filtration and any system. It could be oil from the compressors, any oil that leaks on the, it could be anything related to the facility. But it's primarily oils, lubricating oils, things of that nature, hydraulic oils, hydraulic fluids.
So what happens when it spills on the ground?
Sure. Well, sure, that's the building itself, the floor of the building will be designed to hold a 100% spill of any major liquid in the facility. So it actually will be sloped and curved, so that, and then there'll be usually like a collection trench. That's traditionally what we do at our, like for instance, for cooling, we use antifreeze. Good old-fashioned antifreeze in our coolers. We have to design our facility so that there's a failure and nobody's there, we empty that system. It's got to collect, so it can't run off the site.
So there's no potential for any contaminants?
Off-site, no.
On-site, everything's...
It'll be contained in the, yes, it'll be contained in the building. The tank I referred to, the stock tank, will be located outside, but that'll have double containment. So if that tank were to leak, there's an outer container large enough to handle 100 or 110% of the total capacity of the tank.
I've seen some of these facilities with the flames going 24 hours a day. Would that be?
We don't have any. We do not have a flare operation here. No, that's usually they're associated with the wells and the gathering systems. This is what I consider a transmission facility, only pipe gas into the facility. That's correct.
While we're talking about the internal systems,
Sure.
there's also an emergency generator within the system?
That's correct. If there were a power failure, we'd still want to be able to safely either operate and or shut down the system. So all of our facilities have an emergency generator that backs up, if you will, the electric power supply.
And we talked earlier about the delivery of the gas to not only Transco but to the local utilities.
Sure.
Safe to say that we have now a local company that can provide natural gas to Pennsylvania ratepayers, local ratepayers.
I would say that's correct. That's accurate.
Does the regulation of the operation of the facility, you alluded to Pennsylvania DEP in terms of the emissions,
Sure.
PUC in terms of the safety standards, are those regulations governed exclusively by the PUC, and in the case of DEP by the Environmental Protection Act, or is this covered under the Oil and Gas Act, or both?
Both, but we're primarily when we cited as when we went to the transmission grade facility, we brought other agencies into the regulatory process for review and compliance. So it's a higher standard than just the traditional gathering systems that we've seen in the last few years. As I said, it's a transmission standard. As an example, even though the PUC is obligated now to monitor, assure compliance, safety compliance ongoing during the operations, they are backed up by PHMSA, which is a federal agency, which is a pipeline hazardous material safety agency or authority. I'm sorry. Okay, but it's the federal agency that will oversee them. Just as on the DEP side, on the air side, DEP is enforcing the environmental protection, EPA regulations. Yes.
You work together with Transco?
Yeah, we have to. We have to make a formal application, and we have to meet their criteria before they will allow us to first connect into their pipe and then continue to operate.
Do they or you plan on sending the gas overseas?
I'm not aware of any. I'm not aware of that. Our gas is for our business, our customers. I can't. No, I can't answer for Transco.
Air quality hearings, is that mandatory or is that voluntary?
Well, my understanding of the process, and I think Keith spoke to a little bit earlier, and this is pretty standard, is there is a public comment period when they finally issue a draft permit. They notice it, and there's I believe it's typically 30 days.
Who's notified?
I believe the local papers, I believe the local agencies.
And then the adjoining property owners?
I would have to.
It goes into the local newspaper. And there's mandatory the DEP has mandatory publications that we are required to publish the notice in.
That means
There are rules.
Pennsylvania Bulletin will
It'll
not-
be appear in the Pennsylvania Bulletin as well as at least 1 or 2 local newspapers.
And then if the public, there are enough requests for a public hearing, they'll hold a public hearing. That's
The
up to
public would have to request the hearing?
Yes,
Yes.
public. Public have to request a hearing.
The Caterpillar, why is that the state of the art? So, fancy about those.
Well, they've garnered certainly over 50% of the market. They have a very extensive support network, which is important for the operations side. They support their equipment. They've got a lot of parts availability, expertise availability, and they have, from an emission standpoint, they've really improved over the last 15 to 20 years in terms of the levels that they can now attain from from an emission standpoint. And as a result of that, as I said, they captured, I'm going to say at least 50% of the compressor-driven market for reciprocating engines.
Do all the compressor stations have 3 compressors?
No, some could have 4, some could have 2, some could have 6 or 7.
Okay, but you're the reason why 3 here.
Because that matches the service needs of the gas removal, the amount of gas removal. The pipeline has a certain capacity, the physical capacity, so the compressor station was designed to complement the amount of gas we needed to move. So it's size for this specific application.
Right, it'll be hooked to Transco. Where does Transco go now from here?
Transco goes across the state, and there are several, we have a number of take stations that we take gas off. And then that will be the bulk of the gas, and then there'll be just a 24-inch line coming down to the compressor station. Then from the compressor station on south into Wilkes-Barre, there'll be a 12-inch line directly flowing into the local utility.
So Transco will pay you the gas that you put in the line for?
No, Transco doesn't pay, they ship it, they're strictly a shipper.
The shipper.
Yeah, our customers pay us. Our utility customers, as I said, we're a marketer, we sell to a lot of commercial, industrial customers, and so our customers will pay us for the gas. Yeah, Transco is strictly a shipper.
The emergency response, do you have your own firefighters?
No, we would,
Anyone who specializes?
we would obviously have trained personnel who can handle small fires, handle emergencies, handle the hazard side, if you will, the gas side of the business, so to speak. But we always rely on close coordination with the local fire companies for the fire.
What type of response time are you looking at the volunteer firefighters in the area?
Well, it does vary. It depends how remote the facility is. In some facilities, it's 5 to 10 minutes. In other locations, it could be 25 minutes to a half hour. So the key for us is to isolate whatever the hazard is and get rid of the fuel until we mitigate whatever damage is done to the facility.
We had a very big storm in September, and the water was just unbelievable through the streams. Now with the deforestation of, how many acres did you say?
10 acres is our limited to
10 acres. It's going to be a lot of water overflow. What do you plan on taking care of that? How do you plan on?
Yeah, we've,
for the overflow?
sure. I think Mr. Monaghan testified earlier. Our compressor pad itself is limited to 3.5 acres. Our compressor pad is limited to 3.5 acres. The bulk of the other acreage is devoted to collecting and managing the stormwater. So that's why it's so extensive.
I believe that the exhibit that we're circulating now shows how that's going to be handled.
Yeah.
The buffer land around the station itself,
Sure.
around the pad, is that, and I guess I can also direct this question to Mr. Monaghan, is that going to be augmented at all, or is it simply going to remain woods? How is, when you're describing a buffer?
We will not be touching that other 4 acres, outside that limit disturbance. And to answer the question, stormwater, we've designed 2 stormwater basins in series, not parallel, in series, and we reduced the amount of. We designed 2 stormwater stormwater basins in
They have a
series.
tape here, can I?
Yeah, sure.
Want to repeat what you said earlier?
Sure.
Just so that we know that that's on tape.
There's a 4-acre buffer on the one side that we will not be touching or clearing that area. We understand the stormwater is a concern in this area, and we've designed 2 stormwater basins in series, and we've basically reduced the amount of runoff for this site by 20% for small storms and 34% for a 100-year storm event. So there'll actually be less stormwater coming after our construction is done.
By way of summation, that or later?